Over 5,000 of these drones have been fired into Russian targets in Ukraine. 5,000. And the company that built them just went public on the New York Stock Exchange last month. Most retail investors have never heard of them. But Goldman Sachs, JPMorgan, and 8 other Wall Street firms just piled in with strong buy ratings. Here's the part nobody is covering. 60 to 70% of this company's entire revenue disappears after 2026. And if you buy this stock without knowing that you could be walking straight off a cliff, I'm Tony. This is AVEX. And by the end of this video, you will know exactly what this company does, who's backing it, and the hidden risk that Wall Street buried on page 40 of their report. Let's get into it. At the time of this recording, AVEX is trading around $24.10, but please always check the current price before you make any investment decisions because things change fast. So what does AVEX actually do? Simple answer. They build military drones. But not for some future contract, not a prototype in a lab somewhere. We are talking about combat drones that are being fired in active war zones right now. Their flagship product is called the Phoenix Ghost. It is a one-way attack drone, what the military calls a kamikaze UAV. You fly it into a target and it detonates. No recovery, no return, just destruction. Phoenix Ghost was first sent to Ukraine in April 2022 as part of the U.S. lethal aid package. Since then, AEVEX has delivered over 5,000 Phoenix Ghost units to the Ukrainian battlefield. 5,000 against Russian forces, and here's why that matters for investors. NATO militaries around the world are now willing to pay a premium price for weapon systems that have been actually used in real war and proven to work. Phoenix Ghost has that track record. That is a massive competitive advantage. Beyond Phoenix Ghost, AVEX also makes the Mako an unmanned surface vessel, essentially a drone at sea, and their Compass X software platform, which handles AI autonomy and GPS-denied navigation. They can even deploy containerized manufacturing directly to a combat zone. This is a full-stack defense technology company. Let's get into the numbers. And I want to be upfront, I went straight to the SEC filing and verified everything from multiple sources. These are the real figures. Revenue for 2025 came in at $432.9 million. About 78% of that came from U.S. government contracts. So this is not a consumer company. This is a company deeply embedded in the defense budget. The funded backlog, that's the contracted revenue they already have locked in, is $503.1 million. And that backlog grew 181% year over year. Think about that. Nearly doubled in 1 year. Their total identified pipeline is $8.1 billion. That's the universe of contracts they can go after. They've barely scratched the surface. Now here's where I need to be honest with you. AEVEX is not yet profitable. They reported a net loss of $16.78 million in 2025. And in the first quarter of 2026, that loss widened to $15.1 million compared to only $7.3 million in the same period last year. But here's the bullish offset. Preliminary data from Q1 2026 suggests the company is running at an annualized revenue rate of around $800 million, almost double 2025. If they confirm that on May 20th when they report earnings, this stock could move significantly. At the time of this recording, AVEX was trading at approximately $24.10, down from its all-time high of $42.34. Analyst average price target is $35.25. Always verify current prices before you act on anything in this video. Now here's the part of this story that almost nobody is talking about. And this is exactly the kind of thing this channel exists to cover. Goldman Sachs, one of the top Wall Street banks, published an initiation report on AEVEX just this past week. And buried inside that report is a number that should make every investor stop and think. Goldman estimates that approximately 60 to 70% of AEVEX's current revenue comes from Ukraine-related drone programs. 60 to 70%. That is the Phoenix Ghost. That is the EUCOM AOR Deep Strike program. That is the war in Ukraine. And Goldman assumes those revenues end after 2026. So let me be crystal clear about what that means. If AEVEX cannot replace that revenue with domestic U.S. defense contracts by 2027, you could be looking at a company whose revenue drops dramatically right after you bought the stock. That is the cliff. That is the risk nobody is talking about. And that is why I needed to cover this story. Now, to their credit, AEVEX is actively targeting replacement programs. The U.S. Army launched AVEX program, approximately $450 million opportunity. The OSD one-way attack program, approximately $700 million. And the long-range precision strike program, approximately $200 million. But here's the critical detail. None of those domestic contracts have been fully awarded yet. AVEX is chasing them, not holding them. That transition is the single most important thing to watch with this stock. Let's talk about who is betting on AEVEX. Because when Wall Street lines up like this, it is worth paying attention. 9 analysts have coverage on AVEX right now. All 9 have a buy equivalent rating, not a single sell. The average 12-month price target is $35.25. That is roughly 46% upside from where the stock is trading at the time of this recording. Needham has the highest target at $45. Baird is at $38, Raymond James at $35, Goldman Sachs at $34, JPMorgan overweight at $33, Jefferies buy at $32, RBC Capital outperform at $31. But here is the insider signal that most people completely missed. Just 3 days after the IPO, the CFO of AEVEX went out and bought shares of AVEX stock on the open market with his own personal money. The chief financial officer, the person who sees every single line of the financials, he bought the stock after the IPO. That is a conviction signal you cannot ignore. Now, the risk on this side is the governance structure. The private equity firm Madison Dearborn Partners still controls 79.1% of the voting power. As a public shareholder, you have essentially zero say in how this company is run. That is not unusual for a PE-backed IPO, but you need to know it going in. And the next major catalyst? Q1 2026 earnings drop on May 20th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. That is the first earnings report as a public company. It is make or break for where this stock goes next. Let me give you 5 reasons why the bulls are still excited about AVEX even after the pullback. Number 1. The Pentagon requested over $50 billion for unmanned autonomous systems in its fiscal year 2027 budget. $50 billion. CEO Roger Wells said, and I'm quoting here, "That is absolutely our sweet spot." You want to invest in the sweet spot of a $50 billion government budget line? Number 2. Combat proven equals premium pricing. NATO allies are not buying drones based on spec sheets anymore. They want to know the drone has actually been fired in anger and worked. Phoenix Ghost has 5,000 plus kills. That track record commands a premium. Number 3. The global drone market is projected to grow to $11 billion in the US and $26 billion globally by 2030. AVEX is doing just over $400 million in revenue today. They are barely at the starting line. Number 4. Production capacity upside. AVEX has a 94,000 square foot facility in Tampa, Florida. That facility can theoretically produce 1,000 drones per month. Their current rate, only 350 per month using a single shift. That means they can nearly triple output without building a single new building. Number 5. That $800 million annualized revenue run rate I mentioned. If May 20th's earnings confirm that number with improving margins, this stock is being significantly undervalued right now. Now let's talk about the ugly, because this channel gives you the full picture, not just what sounds good. Risk number 1 is what I already called the Ukraine cliff, and I am labeling this one critical. Approximately 60 to 70% of current revenue disappears after 2026. If domestic DoD contracts don't come through, that is not a small risk. That is existential. Risk number 2. 79.1% private equity voting control. Madison Dearborn Partners controls this company. You are buying in after they have already made their money. This IPO is their exit. You are the next holder of the bag if things go wrong. Risk number 3, the company is still losing money. $16.78 million net loss in 2025. And the Q1 2026 loss widened to $15.1 million versus $7.3 million in the same quarter last year despite growing revenues. Losses are getting bigger, not smaller. Risk number 4, The stock has already crashed 43% from its all-time high of $42.34 down to around $24 at the time of this recording. Anyone who chased the IPO pop is already underwater. Always verify current price before acting. Risk number 5, the lockup period expiry. Insiders are locked from selling shares for 180 days post-IPO. That window opens around October 2026. Watch for selling pressure from PE-backed insiders at that point. Risk number 6, large, well-funded competitors. AeroVironment, Anduril, Shield AI, and the big defense primes are all fighting for the same drone defense dollars with bigger budgets and longer government relationships. So watchlist or buy? Here is my honest take on AVEX. This is a legitimate company with a real combat track record. Phoenix Ghost is not a concept. It has been fired thousands of times in a real war. The production ramp, the DoD budget tailwind, and the analyst consensus are all real. But the Ukraine revenue cliff is a ticking clock. And the private equity ownership structure means you as a public shareholder have very little power if things go sideways. At the time of this recording, the stock was at approximately $24.10, down 43% from its all-time high of $42.34. That pullback makes it more interesting than it was at the peak. But the May 20th earnings report is the real test. Watch that number closely. My verdict: AVEX goes on the watch list with a close eye on May 20th earnings. If they confirm the $800 million revenue run rate and show a path toward profitability, this becomes a serious discussion. If revenue disappoints, the stock has further to fall. As always, nothing in this video is financial advice. I am just presenting the data and the story. You make your own decisions. Before I let you go, I always like to leave you with something that goes beyond the charts and the numbers. Luke chapter 14, verse 28 says, "For which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost?" That is one of the most powerful investing verses in the entire Bible. Before you put your money into anything, AVEX, crypto, stocks, anything, sit down and count the cost. Know the risks. Know the downside. Know what you can afford to lose. That is not fear. That is wisdom. And wisdom builds wealth that lasts. If you want to get started investing, my Kraken referral link is in the description below. Easy setup, solid exchange, or start investing today on SoFi link in the description. Open an active investing account with $25 or more and get $25 in stock completely free. Link is down below. If this video brought you value today, hit that like button. Subscribe if you are new. Drop a comment. Should I do a full deep dive on applied aerospace AADX next? Let me know. I'm Tony. See you in the next one. God bless.